Welcome back, everybody, or if you're a first-time visitor, welcome to my channel. This is the special playlist on the channel, Gen X Transplant Brothers. I am Steve. This is my brother Troy over on that side.
Hello.
And we are the Gen X Transplant Brothers. Both of us born in 1966. Our parents got married. We were both steps and all this stuff about around 70, 69, somewhere in there. We lived with each other through the 70s mostly, and then I moved away. Then we moved together, parents, all this stuff in the 80s. We have phases of our life that we live together, but we oddly haven't even seen each other in person for over 20 years, as we recently found out. So today we want to talk about, we have a plan for sort of a generational arc about what got Gen X here. You know, we've told our stories about where we've been and what we did. We'll talk a little bit about that maybe along the way to illustrate it from our point of view. But really, you know, what was it? What is Gen X first off, and where do we go from here? Type of thing we're going to build to. So, Troy, when you hear Gen X, I don't. Maybe you don't even think about this, or maybe you don't. But I'm sort of keyed into it, so I hear all kinds of comments on it and whatever. When you hear Gen X, what do you think?
I think about my youth between, say, 77 and 85. So anybody who went through my age in that era is who I believe Gen X is. And
Yeah,
so, like, when I meet people and they talk about, you can tell when somebody's talking about either music or their high school graduate or what they wore, the cars they liked. You sense they're Gen X just from listening into them. Just sometimes you can't tell. Some of us look a lot older, and some of us look a lot younger than what I would think are
right.
Gen X people.
Yeah, and you know that's a side topic for another day. How people used to look older in general, but we'll get back to that maybe later
Yeah.
on. But that's an interesting topic. There's a lot on that. But yeah. First off, for everybody that didn't grow up in that time, Gen X technically is 1965 to 1980. Though it is kind of hard to imagine 1980 being similar to being born in, say, 1967, just because of what Troy said. There's a very distinct era, that late 70s up till the mid 80s, as opposed to starting out in, say, 93, or maybe that would be like 90s, and still. So basically, just think Nirvana versus, Kiss / Aerosmith into heavy metal. And so, the good news is Gen X all the way along had the arena rock thing. So that we all have in common. And Troy and I love arena rock. We love live stuff. And so we all have that. But I get where you drift there. I mean, there is a certain ruggedness, I think, that's not all, but that shines through in a lot of men and women, I guess. But I don't know how it's be the same. But they have this sort of, it comes from that latchkey kid generation thing. That's the term that means that there was nobody home when we came home from school. We had a key, we let ourselves in. In my case, I remember some days, I'd leave before the family was awake. A lot of times football practice, but then other times they'd be gone. I'd leave. I'd make a hamburger for breakfast because it was easy in the freezer, and they'd get home, not see anybody, and then around 5, they'd get home. I might be home, dinner would happen and I'd go out. So, I mean, and I think there's lots of you listening or watching this Gen Xers out there, or people in general that, again, as you get older, the safety culture took over and everything changed, crime changed, a lot of things changed, blah, blah, blah. But it was a fun time. It was a free time, you know?
Yeah. Free.
Yeah. I mean, that
That was
was,
a lot.
I mean, just picture it, it's the whole idea of the small town with the grass and all the yards and all the houses, some of them made out of brick. And there's this, the asphalt street, and it's getting dark out, and there's kids getting on their bikes, and nobody has a light or a helmet, and they're sort of just taking off, and they're leaving as it gets dark on their bikes. It's like the that whole scene of it wasn't just drinking out of garden hoses. It was just the ability that you had to be able to do that, whatever you wanted.
Yeah, I mean, you did what you wanted to do whenever you wanted to do it.
Right.
And you really didn't need to be told what's wrong and right. You knew.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was fairly obvious, but
I mean,
sometimes there's some ridiculous.
like now you drink like the faucet drinking out of a garden hose.
I don't know if it would
That's
now.
that's so wrong now. Your parents would probably go to jail for allowing it to happen.
Yeah, but you'd probably also, who knows what's in the
Get
water,
a
how.
spider in your throat.
Right. But here's the flip side of all that. One thing that also took place a lot for a lot of people. I'm definitely sure it happened with myself, perhaps you, Troy. But when we had we lost a member of the family, self-induced, I guess would be the way to say self on YouTube. But let's see, she was 14, I was in 5th grade, and so that rocked the family big time. And that was something that we never talked about. That was not supposed to be talked about, and I mean, it split the family in a weird way. And I don't want to get into too much family dynamics here, but it was never the same. And I think it's other things, divorces, moving from house to house, having step parents, or just rough coaches at school. I mean, there was a lot of kids during that time that were actually getting kind of mentally beat up and nobody realized it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
do you
It,
remember any kids going to counseling or anything
no, never,
ever? I
ever.
never,
It wasn't a thing.
right. There wasn't even a was there? Well, there's a nurse and she had band-aids.
Yeah, she had band-aids. You didn't I mean, you just dealt with it. Well, like we were talking about my friend John King, who died when he fell through the ice the day before
Mhm.
Christmas, 1975. I found that out because of me and my brother were out on the ice playing hockey, and my mom came out to tell us, "Hey, Troy, your best friend, John King died." I said, "How?" And she said that he fell in the ice. It wasn't the lake we were playing on, but she
Uh,
said, "Get off the ice. Don't go back out there." And right before she had told me that, the hockey puck had went out further enough in the deeper part of the lake where the ice wasn't as thick, and I could feel the ice cracking, but I got the puck, shot it back towards the shore, and came back in. Then we got off the ice, and we never
mm,
talked about it. That was it. Your friend's
no.
dead. Don't go on the ice. Okay.
Lesson lesson learned. I don't know why I remember being in Neoga. It wasn't like I was at my mom's house in Chicago or something. I remember finding out, I mean, when it happened, and I was not in Chi I remember being in somewhere in Neoga. Who knows? Maybe I was with dad or something. But,
Maybe we were living on the lake in Lake Sarah, 1975. You might have been with dad because you were probably there for Christmas.
that might have been it. And you know what, Troy? I wanna tell you something. There's a chance we might actually be live right now.
Uh, Mine's recording live.
Yeah, I think we are. Sorry, we thought we were just recording this. I'm glad we hit it and started
Well,
on
it
time.
just mine says been recording for 37 seconds, so we didn't start live, I don't think.
Who knows? I just see it says live. I was trying just to do
That's okay.
all right.
Hello,
So there
everybody.
we go. Less trimming of the raw and unedited. Like we said, we like Arena Rock. There you go, live on stage. Yeah, man, that whole yeah, psychotherapy was younger then, and I mean everything was, and plus generations before it was not a thing. You know, you had a priest maybe, or there was some person in town. I don't know. But I don't even. Yeah, I can't even picture that. Like, who would that have even been? You know, say 50 years before we were born in those same in Cumberland County, Illinois area. You know, there was no. I mean, I can't imagine there was even a counselor
I
in the
remember
state
when
practically.
not to bring, like,
So
death into the picture, but our baseball team, 2 guys on our little league baseball team got run over by a boat, and one of them ended up getting killed, and as a baseball team, we went to the hospital to visit the guy who survived. And I remember being in the hospital going up the elevator, and the doctor was smoking, and he had a a pad in one hand. He was smoking in the elevator of the hospital. And as a kid, I thought, that seems weird. A doctor's smoking, but it was normal back then.
absolutely, yeah. There's commercials. I don't
Yeah,
know.
he did.
I've
Yeah,
never seen
cigarette
old
commercials on TV during the Super Bowl. Smoking wasn't bad for you. It was
the
as
Marlboro
a
Man.
relaxing thing.
Absolutely. Remember the Marlboro Man? I
Mhm.
remember in Chicago when you used to come up, whatever it is, I forget my highways now. 57, 55,
Yep,
57.
57.
Right before you hit the loop, there used to be this huge, huge Marlboro sign, and it had the guy on the horse with the hat and the
Yep, with the
cowboy.
cowboy.
And out of his mouth, it was actually a smokestack from the factory. So it was, or I have to sit somewhere on there. I think it was his mouth, but it might have been a cigarette. But it was always smoking with real smoke.
Oh, I
That
wish I'd
thing
have
was there.
seen that.
Anybody from Chicago, well, I mean, you don't have to be from Chicago, but if you lived in the city, you probably would have passed that rather often throughout your years. I know we did, coming and going from Southern Illinois back to Chicago. So yeah, no language of mental health at all with us in those days. Just
No, he
no.
just
How do you
Just
feel?
this is what happened, deal with it. Well,
Right.
they didn't even say deal with it, they just told you this is what happened. Sorry, move
And
on.
one other thing I want to point out, though, Troy, we're also sort of indicting our parents here because for all we know, there's people out there, maybe you watching right now, Gen Xer or otherwise, who had parents that did do that, that sort of acted as quasi counselors and had like family meetings where they say, share your feelings on this and they have an open and honest space. I don't know how much of that went on. I'm sure it did. But I mean, if you're one of those people, then that's great. You're probably a CEO right now of some major company or something,
Or they could be in an insane asylum.
or that. Yeah, exactly. But you never know. Somewhere in between, where the rest of us are. So anyway, so then not only are we not supposed to talk about it, I don't. Quick note as we segue into war. Do you remember? I mentioned this to my mother a year ago or so, and she said no memory of it whatsoever. But I said, Mom, do you remember we were kids? We were not allowed to say the word Vietnam, let alone Vietnam. Okay, and so we were not allowed to say it. One of them's counter. I forget. The left called it one, the right called it the other. Typical thing. And so it was because of the way the war was and the reception when the soldiers got back and the anger that was behind the people that were doing that. I mean, everybody's now pissed off. The country was a circus for years and years and years. And so after that, we're not, do you remember not being able to talk or speak or say the word Vietnam or talk about it at all?
I don't remember being told to, but we didn't because we had, uncles over there that were in Vietnam. Just like we talked about before, just watching Walter Cronkite do the nightly
Hmm.
statistics or fatalities of Vietnam. So people just, like, sad, didn't talk like you said, that we didn't talk about Vietnam much
Yeah.
because it was not a good thing to talk about.
No, and, yeah, I guess I can toss this out there. My uncle Robin, my mom's brother, he went to Vietnam and was like a sergeant or something. I don't even know exactly what he did. There was some rumors that it wasn't good, and not in the military way, but in the, doing something, whatever. But then when he came back, he eventually became like an auxiliary to the Hells Angels out in California. There was the Hells Henchmen or something like that. They were like a feeder group into there, and his name was Blind Man. For anybody that was around in that era, and so he was fully patched up and everything. It had a Hell's Angels, or it looked just like it. But anyway, he came back one time. I remember to Effingham, and man, did he actually turned out. I have a picture of me sitting on the bike I'm about to describe. It's this chopper, and I mean, it was almost like the Easy Rider chopper. It had like America stuff all over it and everything. And he was like fully tatted up, beard like crazy, hair like crazy, probably earrings. I don't remember. I just remember being like, what in the hell? I mean, the leather and the full patch on the back. I mean, he was 70s biker as you get. And he eventually died of AIDS. But yeah, so
I didn't know that.
yeah, so I never remember anything about I remember lots of being around him and things we did, but I don't remember anything about ever Vietnam, but I remember knowing that he went to Vietnam, and that's odd that all the time we spent together, which would have been tough guy time because he was a tough guy, but veterans maybe don't, mention it. I know as a veteran, when I'm around other veterans, it's not like people sit around and talk about what they did, let alone with people that are outside the veteran community. A lot of people just don't want to talk about it at all. That's fine. Probably most. But at any rate, I want to move now after Robin to the fact that now we're not supposed to talk anything. And now it's the 80s. And now we're supposed to always be afraid of the Soviet Union. Our little piece of the Cold War experience. The boomers had the get under the desks thing and all that. Although we did actually do that once when I was a very little kid. They had that whole era. They went into bunkers. We didn't do any of that. Did you do anything like that? Do you remember any kind of Cold War prep that we did around high school days?
I remember at Pioneer School, which would have been 4th grade, we
Mm,
did have all those huge windows, and I believe we had a drill where we had to put the desks on the sideways and get behind them. But I think that might have been for tornadoes in retrospect, not for Cold War stuff, not for nuclear fallout.
but it also might have been at Pioneer that we did this because you and I went there for kindergarten, right?
Went there for kindergarten and for
We came back in
third
like third
third
grade.
grade.
Third
Third
grade, because
grade.
then I moved to Chicago, right, from there. Yeah,
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 that
from
that
there,
Christmas break you moved.
yeah. But, yeah, that must have been where we did the chairs. Maybe I'm confused. Maybe that's what we did. But also since I've seen it so many times. Anyway, that era was not us. We didn't have all that going and getting into shelters and things like that.
No, that was probably tornadoes when it.
Do you remember at all feeling it? Like, we're in a Cold War, the Soviets could attack at any time, the world could all end to this Armageddon slash it's 1984, everybody's freaking out.
I went to, like I went to seminars that talked about how bad it could be. 1, actually, not seminars, 1. And then it was mostly through music and movies. Like, we had the movie Red Dawn, I think, with Patrick Swayze. That
All-time
was,
great
like,
movie. Awesome
great
movie.
movie.
Awesome movie.
That really opened my eyes, and I think it might've opened the eyes to the Soviets thinking, "Wow, the kids are gonna fight us?"
Mhm.
And then the other one that was Everybody Wants to Rule the World, the song by Tears for Fears, and there was more music that was more terrifying, like, to
Right.
me. I didn't wanna hear that.
Right. And for us, I don't, and I'm sure for others out there, music in some form played a part in how maybe you, without knowing it, manage that era. I mean, look at it. We have this fear of this thing going on, and you and I, and probably others that are still listening to us because we talk about heavy metal a lot, you and I were like knee deep in metal. It was all power. It wasn't whiny metal. It was power metal as far
Yeah.
as not the style of the music, but the voice, the message. It was about we will succeed. Iron Maiden's always winning those things. I mean, they have setbacks, but they're not losers. And Priest and all those bands are accept. Listen to accept. They're not whining. you know, no, I'm not trying to say later metal was, but you get my drift. It was still sort of denim and leather into pyramid spikes just before the bleach blonde took over.
It was Tough Guy and,
Yeah,
um, Success
right.
and Good Time. Let's have a good time,
Right.
right?
Like brotherly, so and
Yeah.
so what that does though is it sort of goes along with this whole. I don't know if you ever heard this thing that Gen X was sort of raised in the same way that you would basically do. The schools were designed basically in the same way you would train a military. And so they had the education component, they had the nutrition component, and they also had the workout component. And the purpose of that was to make sure that every little Gen Xer, when they got old enough, was in good shape in case they needed to join the military. I don't know if that's true, but I've heard that talked about before, and it makes sense if you look at it like that. It would work that way regardless. And so, what I'm getting here, where was I going with that? This is the part where we're live that I would edit it out.
Right.
So, at any rate, it was a power era time. I lost my train of thought. Maybe that's the old hepatic encephalopathy coming back. But at any
Yeah,
rate,
don't say it, it might come back.
might come back. So, all right. Well, unless I'm not going to get that back. Let's hop on to the next little part that we have of this first Gen X experience. Is that you've heard it talked about? We had to go from what is it? It would have been for us. It'd be 8 tracks to cassettes to CDs to better CDs probably, and then to MP3s, and now to subscriptions. So I don't even have, my Neil Young album sitting over there anymore. I have to go to Spotify and make sure that I paid my whatever $12 a month for the family plan to listen to it. What do you think of that? The impact of technology on us as far as how many times Gen X has sort of had to reinvent itself.
Uh, the more yeah, that's something weird I never thought about.
I mean,
I still s when CDs were coming out, I laughed that they would skip when you hit a bump. I stayed with cassettes all the way through. I never owned
mhm,
many CDs at all because about that time, for me, I was starting to, like, fall off the whole music scene because it was just for me, it was getting ridiculous. And then computers were
right.
coming about. They were starting to come out. I was a draftsman where you did the drawing yourself with pens and Mylar and vellum. And these computers started showing up saying, well, if you don't learn this, you're not going to have a job. And we just, ha ha ha. Yeah, you'd laugh. You're sitting in a room with 22 draftsmen and your boss is telling you, this is going to replace you. And seeing all of them just start, the people who didn't want to learn it were leaving. I'll find a job somewhere else. Well, and trying to accept that technology is taking over, maybe your generation if you don't keep up with it. Because I
Yeah.
watch guys just, I'm not going to learn that. I'm not going to learn computer. And that's probably the generation before us that absolutely refused to learn all this. So we had to adapt. I did somewhat. I did learn computer drafting, but
Mm, in
it
that
was
time.
difficult, like, going from CDs. Like I said, I didn't buy many CDs, and now
Right.
CDs are so obsolete and DVDs are a joke.
Hmm.
Going from okay, learning to adapt. You go from going to a mom and pop video store when videos first came out in the '80s, there was then all of a sudden there's Blockbuster and Family Video, all these conglomerate, huge corporate videos, and then to see all of that, poof,
It's
gone. You can't find a video store anymore because they don't exist because you got the Netflix came out, well, they'd send you a DVD and you'd watch it, you'd send it back,
I forgot
and
about
then
that.
my favorite thing was the Redbox. You could go to Walgreens, there's a
Right.
Redbox. Ours,
Mhm.
the last one here in the town where I live just got taken out maybe 2 months ago. But
Wow.
I thought, "Hey, this is brilliant investment. I'm gonna invest in getting a red box," and you might have made a lot of money for 10 years maybe on it, but now it's obsolete. So now we gotta adjust to I don't even know what is next in movies. I watch YouTube.
I don't think it's gonna change much for us. The delivery to the screens that it's on now, it's staying there,
Yeah,
and it's just I mean, they might improve how that's done, but we're not gonna be having to buy physical objects.
right.
There's no more CDs. I mean, unless things change. But,
Well,
yeah,
and
and
now
go ahead.
well, now I'm hearing with AI coming in, there's another one we're gonna have to adjust to.
Let me say something really fast on that. I had a thought, not a thought recently about the fact that I asked ChatGTP to write a song in the
Mm,
style of Robert Hunter, who is the lyricist for the Grateful Dead, and then to put it in an arrangement as Jerry Garcia would have played it. And it did it.
wow.
Boom, it popped this thing out. And I thought to, and then I was watching, I forget the guy's name. He does guitar player. He's really been on a he's got tons of followers and all this. Rick Beto, I think is his name. He's
Yeah,
been on a
Rick
rant.
Beato.
Right, right, him. He's been on a rant lately, which I'm with him on this about AI's impact. And he like made a song
Yeah,
that got to like number one on Spotify. And it was fake. And apparently there's a lot on Spotify now that is reaching the top that is simply AI putting this stuff together. So I was
yeah,
thinking, what if I took this thing what if I took this Jerry Garcia song and told it the same thing, but these lyrics? Is it going to whip out a song? And then it
yes.
hit me. Then it hit me. Okay, well that's fancy, but would I mean eventually it would probably have it perfect. I mean,
Yeah.
it'd have it so digitized. But but then I started thinking, what if I could just say, hey, make me a random Grateful Dead show, spring tour of 1980. I want it to be an outdoor amphitheater, sunny, and like a 5 o'clock show on a Sunday. I want to have that feel and I want the setting to be Shoreline Amphitheater in Mountain View, California, and
Yeah.
boom, there it is. Let the good times roll, or who knows, it starts playing, and that's coming. That is coming.
Yeah, I've heard that you can like, it's even gonna affect movies to where you can make the movie that you want to see.
Exactly. Just describe it.
Right, describe what you wanna I wanna see The Wizard of Oz with Godzilla and Taylor Swift in it, and boom, there you go.
Okay, now that's gonna be. Can you imagine the sea of weird shorts we're gonna see out of that stuff?
Oh, I
But
wanna
what would?
see it. I wanna
But
see Taylor Swift fighting Godzilla. If you guys can put up with that, I wanna see it.
you know what I would like to do if I could do that? I would take from Michael Moorcock, who played in Hawkwind back in the '60s, Indigada Vida. Michael Moorcock was also an author, was also might even still be alive. Anyway, is an author perhaps, and he wrote the Elric of Melnibone stories, which we've talked about already because of
Yeah.
previous mentions of that. But there's no movie for it, and there's been a couple times they went to try to make it, and it would be Witcher-esque almost, and perhaps that guy might. Well, he's too big. Elric, the main character, is a skinny albino with white hair that has a fancy sword named Stormbringer that he has to suck the souls off of people to stay healthy, to get his strength. But he's not an evil person. It's a great series of like 6 books. I used to read it all the time. I loved it, loved it, loved it. To be able to put that all 6 novels into an AI and say, make this into a movie,
You'll
and
be
then
able to
have
do it.
I know, and it'll be fast. I mean, I'm not talking tomorrow. When it first comes out, it's going to suck, yeah. But just if it comes out tomorrow, wait till 15 years from now. In the way that we're going through change, look at us, Gen X. Look what we just talked about. We went from learning typewriters that weren't electric to electric ones to computers. And certainly other generations did that too. But
I learned how to type on a typewriter
yeah,
in
typing
college.
class,
In
typing
college.
class. Oh, I had to take I remember it was an elective that you had to take. It was like
Yeah,
that or something crazy in high school. So
yeah,
I took it so I could type. Thank God I did.
yeah. I don't know how anybody could do without it now.
Exactly. I mean, that was a very good skill to be taught in high school. These days, they don't need to. Kids come out, I think they're born now able to type, the newest
I think
generation.
so.
Yeah, exactly. They already
I
have their
can't
Facebook page.
well, my youngest son's 20, and I don't remember him not knowing how to type. I don't. He's been
Mm,
with me since he was 8. I think he knew how to type when he was 4. Like you were saying, I think they are born
right.
knowing how to do it.
Right. My youngest son did. In fact, the first time he touched the keyboard, sitting on my lap in front of a big monitor playing World of Warcraft back in, he probably would have been 4 to like 2011, 2012. And he wanted to make his own character because he used to watch me. And so he did. And he made his little rogue, human rogue for any World of Warcraft people out there. And so Chocolate K was the name of this tune, as they say, character. And so he sat there and I would move for him. He'd say where to go at first, but literally, like the end of the first day, he was already pushing some of the buttons. And within a couple days, he was pushing all the buttons just because he simply knew where they had to go. But in the process, also would have to type words sometimes. And so that I think that might be how he learned to type, play World of Warcraft, getting at least the seeds of it that early. So yeah,
Probably so, yeah.
right. But I didn't touch a typewriter until I had to in high school.
I think
So
I was even in college.
and then we have the other one. Let's do one big other piece here, and that is the cultural shift of the United States. Now, this is going to be kind of touchy sounding. We have a lot of controversy in the United States about these things, certain populations and whatever. But I just want to say that if you look back from like the time we were little kids and we saw what the past was, which was the 50s and 60s, it wasn't a whole lot different as far as the towns, the cities, the places you go. Sure, they didn't dress as nice as they did in the 50s, but they still by the 80s, men were still walking around with hats and jackets and dressed up, like in New York City. So the cultural shift from that to today, a businessman walking around in tennis shoes or showing up with the sweatpants on because it's casual Friday, but that's a bad example because that's old school too. But you know what I mean? Just the lack of professionalism in the look, but it's not seen as lack of profession. So we had to change the way we see what is acceptable in some pretty dramatic ways. And then on top of that, we've seen our cities in some areas and towns become unrecognizable simply because of more people moving in that are not similar to the people that already live there, I guess is the most plain way you can say it. And so there's a part of this whole thing going back and looking at it that even though we've had to change and we've adapted, we've also somehow lost something huge. And that's sort of our version of, and there's really no way to say this without somebody labeling me on it, but our world of America as it was roughly between our experience, say 70 when we're cognizant enough to register it, up until perhaps around the time as late as Y2K. I mean, it was getting toxic. We started at that time a little bit, but man, it took off. And then it not only got crazy, but it went in so many directions. And then we have new populations. And so it's like, I don't know, I miss that America. And I
I
don't know
miss
how
it
to say that
too.
without saying without somebody saying, oh, you want to get rid of it? No, no, I don't want to do that.
Right,
I want
usually
more
when you say you
Americans.
miss the America that I loved, the first response is, "You want slavery again?" No, I
No,
don't.
we weren't alive in the 60s
I don't
or
want that.
before.
I miss
So that
America
wouldn't be it.
when we were all united as Americans, not the divided states of America, and I think that started changing with college professors being, communists may perhaps,
Mhm.
but they taught it when I was in college in the '80s, kind of anti-Americanism, but I think we came out of that with, "That guy was full of shit." We just got our grade, but then generations after us started listening to that and just agreeing, "Yeah, America does suck," not knowing anywhere else. You've never been anywhere else, you just know where you're at sucks, kinda stupid.
There's a lot to unpack there.
It's aggravating to see it happen 'cause it's my America too.
Yeah, my America too, and that's the thing too, is that and here I go. This is going to sound like, again, this is going to fall right in the trap of all the current politics going on. Here I go, Dearborn, Michigan.
Yeah.
But when a town changes like that, does it do it on purpose, or is that okay? But is that America? I mean, it's just so it's such a different kind of thing to encounter in the United
Dearborn,
States. With
that is
yeah,
not America at all.
well, again, right, and maybe we'll talk more about that particular thing later, but just to stay on the topic of the change in general and having to adapt to it, we have adapted to a lot. We've adapted to the rules that we had were pretty rigid, generally speaking, though we had ultimate freedom. In other words, if you did something wrong, you were busted. There wasn't a lot of wiggle room. And I'm not saying, but again, well, I am saying that today it's much more lax. There's much less discipline in homes. There's much more disciplines in schools and things like that. And so that's going to happen. And look at the law enforcement and the way that they actually put people in jail that commit crimes. It's crazy how many people just whatever. It's a different world in that regard too. And I think that has created even another thing: so safety. We feel like we're being replaced, or not all of us. I mean, look, we're talking about one little town if we want to just go back to Dearborn, Michigan. It's not like this is happening across the United States. This isn't going to suddenly start happening across, the plains and everything. All the rivers along the Mississippi are going to suddenly turn into something else. It's not going to be like that. It's gonna reach a boiling point, or it's going to reach a point where we decide what America is. And if America is going to be a population of Skittles, then it's never going to work. We have to be the melting pot that we say we are, and that means we all melt together as unified
Americans. Yep.
Americans, like when we were kids in the 80s. How many times did you hear bipartisan bill? For whatever reason, that's one of the main governmental things I would think of if I had to think about it. I remember hearing bipartisan bill, bipartisan. When's the last time you heard of a freaking bipartisan bill?
Well, even like when your friends' parents would talk politics and you realize they don't agree with my parents. That's all that came out of it. Well, our parents don't agree on politics. And that was that. Those two parents could
Yeah,
still talk and be friends with them. Because not, that
yeah,
because they were
that kind of thing.
Americans first.
Exactly.
We disagree, but we're still neighbors and we can disagree. But today, you can't disagree. It's my way or you're out of here. Yeah, it's weird.
Yes.
It's a weird
Right.
America now.
The hardest addiction to break is being right. And it is chronic right now in the United
That's a
States. And
good one.
I'm not talking either side of the political aisle. I'm talking correct.
Right.
People insistent that they know based on all of these past memories that then come forward and become emotional first or whatever. I mean, it just happens so fast. It's like nobody has a pause button. It's a world of reaction and not response.
Well,
And
not
so we don't
well, yeah, and then some of the people that you think are completely wrong makes
right.
you right. But I don't wanna get too political, but the one in college that started getting to me bad was America was built on slavery. No, we weren't. Absolutely, we were not. And I'm not gonna get political, but that is political, so sorry. But to be taught that lie is just and it's gone so far out of hand now, it's just that's aggravating to me to where American history is being, it's like a clay mold. They're saying, "No, this is how it really was." So younger
Right.
generations believe in that we're built on slavery. No, that we were not.
Right. As you know, Troy, I did a lot of work in the American Civil War as part of my history degree. In
Yeah.
fact, I did enough of history classes in that topic for two in history. I just loved it, so I took way too many, and then wrote. And my first published book was about the American Civil War. I will add to that the statement that the United States was built on slavery. Yeah, you can say that's wrong, but you must then say the United States was built with slavery. With meaning that it was one of several things, perhaps. All right. If you want to look at a toolbox of things and not have a judgment of what they are, it was certainly in there with every other working class hero that came over from whatever mountain or valley or Ireland or Norway or Germany or
Ireland.
wherever we came from. Right. Wherever we came from, we did that too, right? It's not like it was only one of any of them. And that's the point, is that here we are now, regardless of how we got here. Can we talk as Americans again to even
No.
begin to heal through this thing? Because
Nope.
all this talk of a civil war, there's that. I mean, tanks and things like that are almost obsolete. We're not going to have people in the streets shooting each other like that. That's not going to be a thing. I mean, you might have some random pop offs here and there, but you're not going to see major armies. You're not going to see the Union and Confederacy going, state lines. We're so interspersed that's not possible. And I don't think Americans are crazy enough to do that. That's
I
why.
kind of think they are.
As who? The ones that you see on all these viral videos. I mean, how many people do you know that would act like that? And I'm not talking about everybody that's at a protest, but the people that are just like insanely crazy doing stuff and just freaking out, screaming.
Yeah, I think you're probably right because I mean, I lived in a small town where they were ready. I forgot what happened, but people were gathering their guns for something they
I
felt big
remember
was
you
going.
saying this. You were saying this. It was during one of the. It might have been during Black Lives Matter. I remember talking to you on the phone, and somebody had
Yeah,
said right,
yeah.
but
They
that was.
said
I
they
mean,
were
that whole
coming.
era.
Yeah,
Yeah, everybody thought
that
they
they
were
were
coming.
claiming that we're going to come to the small towns.
Fear is a
Uh,
great thing.
yeah, and I was like,
Fear
oh
writes its
yeah,
own stories.
fear is what causes anger.
Right. And the
And
likelihood
these
that your
people were
town
riled
actually
up
had
with their weapons. We're waiting. And they would have
exactly.
shot. If those people would
Right.
have showed up, they would have been shot. I know that for a fact.
No doubt. But let's reel this in for a second. There was nobody coming. That was probably I would almost
Uh-huh.
guarantee that was a fear-based story that somehow just came out of, well, since I see
Well,
it happening on TV, it can happen here. No, it's not.
well,
It's
when you
not. It happens
rationally
in a
think
few
that
places.
out, if they were rationally thinking this
Right.
out, they would have thought, okay, they can't possibly do that to every small town. Can't,
Right.
they don't have the
But here's the other
numbers.
thing. The other thing about that though is that um I don't know. That's just that whole type of mindset that they're coming to get us. It's
I
not.
thought it was,
And my point being also though, in that town, did anybody pop off and all of a sudden get mad and start something with did anybody from the town actually represent this other thing?
well, yes.
But did they get violent and have some big thing? Right. That's my point. The vast majority of Americans are not like that. Even them, even those would have been protesters that had a message and they have freedom of speech. But if they're not
Yeah.
breaking things and screaming and yelling and painting people's faces in cars, that's perfectly okay. But my point in that was even the people in the town that, oh my God, here they come, we're going to get our guns out. And the people that were protesters, none of them fired at each other. And that's my
No.
point, that what we're
Yeah.
seeing in these viral videos are exceptions to the rule. But the problem with that is that mindset spills into all those that watch it and get fired up and fired up and fired up and begin to think that, oh my God, they're coming.
Yeah.
Just because some 22-year-old person's flipping out in their phone, screaming and yelling about how they're going to come do some awful thing. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Yeah.
happens. I'm not
Where's
trying to
your
downplay.
guns? What do you
Right, and
mean,
I'm not
where's my
trying to downplay
guns?
it. I mean, look what happened to Charlie Kirk. I mean, certainly there's going to be wackos, but we've had wackos forever. Ask
Yeah.
Reagan, ask John Kennedy, ask Bobby Kennedy, ask Martin Luther King, Malcolm X,
Ask our current president.
ask our father of our state, the land of Lincoln, Abe. He'll tell
Yeah.
you all about it. So I mean, it's not. And again, blah, blah, blah. We're getting too far in the
Yeah.
weeds on this. So that was an interesting conversation. For let's see how
Yeah,
long we've been on.
that's
Troy and I
funny.
we were originally going to record this and then talk about something live. So I want to talk about something though real fast, touch on a topic that we've touched on earlier lives. Troy asked me questions about the fact that I live in Colombia and as far as Venezuela, and we talked about news out of everything, news out of the US about that and everything. I'm going to say something now that is, I'm going to share something with you, Troy, that is a story that I was first told by Venezuelans. As again, I live here. I've lived here 5 years, and most of my friends are Venezuelans, or at least my close ones, who came from there and are doing just fine here, perfectly gainfully employed, have happy, blah, blah, blah. The story, if you put it together after talking to several of them, none of them contradict, and they all say basically the same thing. So it would more or less go, and this isn't certainly not, I'm not trying to give you a scoop, but the story basically goes that during the time when Chavez took over in the 90s or whenever that was in the early days, the initial thing, yes, the United States was irked because of the oil. They made it a state oil thing. And it got worse by the time he left. But during this whole time, there's a side controversy that I'm not going to talk about yet because not much in the news, and it involves a certain kind of power that somebody can have as far as influencing other nations. Was somehow it was developed during that time to help them cheat in an election. And so that worked. And so what happened is somehow during this time, they morphed in from being just this little Venezuelan outfit with Chavez into now having a super duper level of power that most countries didn't know about. And somehow, I don't even know the chain of events here, but when the time comes for Chavez to die, when he dies, they don't know what to do with Venezuela. So whoever they are. So effectively, what happens is the government of Venezuela, what counts, the actual power, is moved to Cuba. And Maduro
Oh,
is sort of picked as this guy that they know will just be there and just basically be a puppet without strings. In other words, just let him do things and make him happy, and he's connected to whatever else he wants to be. And again, I'm not trying to say I know this for a fact, but this is basically the story goes that the Venezuelan government seat of power was basically moved to Havana during the end of the Chavez time. So
yeah.
right now, and so this is where the story gets even crazier. They're talking about this stuff on Colombian radios down here. I've heard that he has actually around him, Maduro has around him special security people that are from Cuba, that if he were to negotiate with the United States in any way, that they would make sure that did not happen, let's just say, in a very real and permanent way. And so, whether or not that's true, I don't know. But it does hook up with this existing story that's been going on forever that the true seat of power is over there. Okay, now this also ties into that other things. And I feel kind of apprehensive to say where I heard this. It was on the Alex Jones show, but it wasn't Alex Jones. Not that I have a problem with him, but I know he's highly controversial and he very much on a limb a lot. But he had an interview with a guy that had done an investigation into the cartel of the Suns, which is the one that everybody refers to. The Sun is, of course, being the rank on the military. So that's the rumor is, or the story is, that cartel of the Suns is a connection between possibly Maduro, but certainly members of the military and some other government people that have been paid off or sort of in this sort of cocaine trade thing. All right. I don't know. That's just the popular story on that. But again, everything matches the general story. And that's the convenient end, by the way, for the United States by designating him narco terrorist. That gives them an end. So anyway, that's basically the story. And then so at the same time as all this is popping off here, we had a bombshell report come out of Medellin just up the road yesterday. And it was all over the radio and it's all over the front page of El Tiempo right now. You can go visit it right now. Just right click on it with Google and hit translate to English. You could read all these stories and it is a mess. All this news came out and I'm not trying to, this is not exact, but more or less what came out is that members of the FARC, which is the principal leftist guerrilla group that's supposedly signed a 2016 peace agreement in Colombia to end their civil war. But apparently that didn't happen. They've always sort of been running around out there. And somehow over the years, they've also become now more or less narcos as far as trafficking stuff. And so they're still the leftist guerrilla, but I doubt they're really championing Marxism. They're more about making money in the cocaine trade. And so, and yes, they are on the list that the United States just designated in Colombia. And so, as this whole thing. At any rate, what came out yesterday is that the president Petro has been in cahoots with the FARC all during his presidency, and
Like,
that he has placed in several key places members, or somehow, maybe not him directly, but there's like a lot of the top people are actually FARC. And this all came out. And again, this is in El Tiempo. This is not me in a scoop. The earlier Venezuela stuff, yes. The Colombia stuff, and I'm not even exact here because I tried to get through it all. There's so many different stories and it's connected. Because every region has a story about, oh, this guy, oh, this guy, oh, this guy. It is a mess. And so if that proves true or whatever, because see, here's why I think it's important. The cartel of the Suns and the Maduro story, the U.S. clearly wants Maduro out of power for probably the oil, definitely strategic, stuff like that. We want to take care of our own hemisphere, all those reasons. Yes, there's the narco thing. That's there too. And it's great for the public face. It sounds great. And then, and so then they solve that. And they also perhaps that Alex Jones thing with the voting. That's the thing I was talking about. I forget the guy's name. He had him on the show. And this whole thing about whether or not Venezuela can control elections around the world, oddly, which would actually be happening through Cuba, oddly, which probably would ultimately be Moscow.
Russia.
Right. I mean, that's just to be expected. But At any rate, so my concern here is that being in Colombia, being a United States veteran, that it's looking to me like, because I hear more and more of the government officials saying Venezuela and Colombia, they clearly do not like Petro because Donald Trump and Petro have already argued plenty. Petro is the sort of left extreme of what Donald used to be when Donald used to tweet like crazy. Now he tweets a lot, but not like, 3 a.m. random tweets. Petro does still do that. So they're easy to fight. And they did. They had a big fight last year. And then but the way they fight is Trump throws a tariff on us, on Colombia. I say us, I'm American. But so anyway, and so obviously I'm not aligned with Petro at all or that whole wing of it. But so now he can probably, if they can somehow attach him now because of this attachment to the FARC, and if the FARC are now are going to be designated as terrorist organizations, the way they're doing it with Venezuela, then that would implicate Petro as well. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but you can see how this could, not quickly, but this could unfold by this time next year or by this time June, of next year. We might be talking about things here. I think that if that happens, United States, listen, that better not happen. Colombia is the oldest ally in all of Latin America. Their constitution was written in Washington, D.C. Their first name was the United States of Colombia, which it remained for not very long. They changed it. They have been aligned with us since that day in the 1800s. Nobody else has been aligned that long. Now,
I did not
certainly
know that.
lately, it's been rocky. This president is the first left-leaning president ever in the election to be elected president. And it was elected in a very weird kind of way somewhere. I'm not, no, the
Yeah.
counting was correct, but the tactics were similar. You promise everybody you're going to buy them a new house, and they're going to vote for you. But not to get too into the politics here in Colombia. So Colombians, all the ones I'm around anyway, have no problem at all with the United States. In fact, I have to think if I were to say to somebody out here, United States is, or Colombia is going to declare war on the United States, they would look at me like I was absolutely crazy. Not because of fear of getting blown up by an F-16 or whatever, F-33s, but why in the heck would that happen? 80% of the goods that this country goes there, and to all the trade goes to the United States. I mean, and half of them have been to the United States or have family members that live in the United States for decades. I mean, it's unheard of. It's not the same kind of, like when people think, oh, if I go to Mexico, they hate Americans. It's not like that in Colombia, and I'm not saying it's like that in Mexico either. That's probably mostly, maybe they're on the border, it might be rough, but anyway. And so here's my point in all that. On top of the fact that we should never put boots on the ground here for a population of people that actually do like America, they're never going to come out and gush over it, but they fundamentally, I don't think, have a problem with it. I mean, they're a conservative country. They're almost all Catholics. If I walk through my neighborhood, there's so many Marys with the thing around it and flowers, and some of them are up on a pedestal with lights. They're up at night, and everybody's quiet, and all the kids are all snazzy, dressed up. It's not what people might think. It's not a bunch of crazy gorillas running around the jungle trying to sell cocaine. It's a lot of cocaine, but it's a relatively small amount of people. Again, back to we only hear about the worst. And so the other thing I just want to throw in there now, saying please don't attack. Not that I think they're going to ever go to war. I don't ever see that happening with Colombia. But the other thing is Petro can't run for president again, and he's out of office next summer. And this country is not going to elect another left by far. It'd be almost amazing he makes it that far. This is a guy that went to Paris and somehow vanished from the presidential plane for like 4 days and showed up at the airport, and nobody knew where he was. And the whole country knew it. It was in the paper. Where is he at? Nobody knows. So, I mean, this is not some powerhouse. And I'm not trying to down Petro. I'm sure maybe there's a Petro. Well, actually, I am. I'm downing his ability to manage this international affair with any kind of clarity that would help his country. And certainly from the United States point of view, I don't ever see the United States actually doing that. I do see, though, coming in maybe and doing similar things that they've always done, like with Plan Colombia, when they took out prior to that, Pablo Escobar, and then the Medellin cartel, and then the Cali cartel, and then later with Plan Colombia.
Well,
So
could he rig his
who
election to
knows?
where he's going to win?
No,
No,
that's not going to work.
people would
here.
know
No,
that.
this is spit. No. This is not Venezuela. And I'll say this like this: Venezuela The reason they don't react to these things now is because they've been beat down so long, they no longer sort of try to fight back. It's not worth it. When you do that decade after decade to a population, it just takes the fight out of them. Colombians are fired up. If they think for a second it was a fake election, you're going to see trouble. You're going to see people, you're going to see, and I'm not saying they're going to go out and fight each other, but you will not shut them up ever, ever. This is a very impressive. I mean, that's one thing I love about Colombia and Colombians. I mean, they are so tight in that way. I mean, they have their world, and it's somewhat broken, somewhat fixed, somewhat okay, somewhat beautiful, and very beautiful in a lot of ways. But they all have this. They are what I'm talking about. When we were all Americans, they might be politically divided here, but you don't ever hear about anybody talk about politics. And again, I'm not trying to say this is better
That'd be
than
so
that, but
nice
shit, I
to
like that.
yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be great to go a day without hearing anything about politics.
that was the appeal. Remember when I came here, I was coming for 3 months. That was 5 years and 6 weeks ago. And except for 18 months in Mexico, spread out over 2 years, two different trips, I've been here since. So, I mean, I just when I came when I got to Medellin and started experiencing the people, even though it was a ghost town because it was during the pandemic, we literally had nobody else but us in some of the places at times. Today, those places are jam packed, but the professionalism of like wait staff, as far as how they're dressed, now they're never going to come back and ask you if you want a glass of water. They don't do that return to the table stuff. You got to flag them down. But everybody's dressed nice. They're clean. Their hair's back. If they're working, they look good. If the door people that run our gate in front of our place that we live in, they're called condominiums here. It's really not a condominium. It's basically a gated community, and everybody does that. They all wear like old, like watchman type outfits and very official, have their belt on and all their stuff is perfect. And they range in age from, 30s to like maybe 60s, and they're everywhere. The whole thing, it literally just sometimes I hate saying it like this because it makes me sound like I'm saying Colombia's living in the past, but it makes me think of what it must have been like to be around in, still in the early 70s, but like in the 50s and 60s when you'd walk into a hotel and everybody be dressed up, all the people there and professional, and people would open doors for people. If you went to a restaurant, they would, all these kind of things. It's just different now. Now I sound like I'm bitching.
No, it sounds like
But in Colombia, it's
a
just fine. Yeah, it is great. Now, of course, that's all the positives, and there's plenty of downsides of living here. And we'll talk about that some other time. But I just wanted to say that thing about the Venezuela, I think it'd be interesting for some American watchers. Where in fact is the seat of power of Venezuela ultimately? Not that that would matter. I mean, if the country itself is secure by somebody else, and then also the whole notion of that whole thing. I think that's just fascinating that the government of Venezuela has not been there for a long time, and that perhaps the way they did this was because they got this power from this other story that's out there about developing this way to cheat in voting machines, and they've been controlling voting around the world for a long time. And so, but as the story goes on that, again, I'm not the one that's bringing this. You can go see it on Alex Jones. I'm not going to sit here and show about people in a box on his.
yeah.
The way he puts it is basically that they have this power to do that, and that now people know. But if you say anything, imagine if the United States said, "Hey, we just found out that our last 46 elections in these various places were fixed, and it's everything from senators to the U.S. presidency." How would the people react to that?
Yeah, that
Not
would be
good,
bad. That would be really bad.
right?
I
This
think
is
we
like
did have a
why.
president that was not elected. A lot of people believe that.
Well, of course, everybody goes to those things. Here comes the hypotheticals, because fear
But
again writes its own narrative. So start thinking it through.
on
Okay,
then
that's it.
on top of that is and I don't know if it was Alex Jones. I shouldn't even say it. I don't know where I heard it, but our voting machines actually were modeled after Venezuela's Maduro
Yeah.
election. So,
Well, that's the thing, right? The story goes, and a few other details from it. Basically, the story on this video, and this guy is the guy that did some formal investigation. I don't know if he was from the government or if he was some funded thing, but he was very official, had all this documentation, stats, I mean, everything, and it was like a several years investigation. And he unearthed this whole thing, and it basically
uh
the thumbnail version of it is that they thought Chavez was going to lose an election. And so that was the case. And so they figured out a way to fix the machines somehow. And then after they had successfully done that, they realized, whoa, what power do we have?
Right.
And so then they took it, they refined it or whatever the story goes, and then started influencing other governments to be favorable towards them by having
Yeah.
people that like them elected. See
Yeah.
how that goes. And
Yeah.
so apparently and then it moves into all these other layers where, it's the companies are closed and repurchased, and it names
Yeah.
actual companies that are still there today, and that how they are the ones that have been selling this thing to stay one step ahead of getting caught, or the source code and all this other. But at the end of this whole thing, this whole saga and it gets even crazier. It's like something right out of like a John Wick type thing. At the end of the whole thing, it really comes down to the question of, okay, if that is the case, first off, doesn't really change tomorrow, but it certainly changes what we're talking about and how we look at the past and how we got here suddenly, because now everybody's wondering, did my guy really win? Or did
Right.
that guy really win? Do we
Yep.
need elections all over the world? And then take that not just from your county to your state to the country to potentially, countries in Europe, maybe countries in Africa, countries in the Middle East. Who knows where, if this is a true story, would go. But the thing that's interesting about it and why I think it belongs in this whole talk about Venezuela to begin with is, again, if that is true, that would add a layer that we would never find out about
No.
to why the U.S. might want to get in there and get this, or however secure this situation,
Yeah. I
among
never
other
thought about
things.
that.
I'm not saying that's the one. Of course, there's the oil. Of course, there's a geopolitical struggle with Russia and China and wanting China to get out of the region in general. And then you got the narco, the drugs thing, and then the crime, then the immigration. I mean, it goes, so the list goes on and on. And then maybe you also have this as an actual driver. Who knows? So there we go. We got our little conspiracy. I need some tinfoil, man. Do you got it here? Look at top of this thing. Does
Yeah.
it work? Good to go. Get me my X-Files shirt, man. I want to believe.
I love that kind of
All
stuff.
right. All right. Any last thoughts here? We've gone on live for now a long time. We only thought we were recording this short little 5-minute thing about Gen X, and it ended up being this hour and
Venezuela.
15-minute live. Yeah. So if you're watching all day, if you're watching this, be sure to, comment below, hit that like button. It does help, I guess. That's what they say, right? And definitely subscribe so you can watch these again. The way this is going to work is we'll chop this all up into little shorts that'll feed to little segments of this, and then the little segments will lead to this. So if you ever want to just look for a particular topic, you can look in the video section, and that's where maybe we'll have, like, even today's Venezuela talk will get its own video for tomorrow or later today. Troy, I'm done. You got anything else?
No, I'm done too.
You're done too.
I am
You're
done
done
as
also.
well.
I am done as well. Right. We're building on those words. Remember it was hey, that fine and dandy from the other day, folks. All right. Well, that's it from Colombia and from
Illinois, USA.
There is no noise. And I got to tell you something funny. So in Colombia, the double L is pronounced more like a J. So if they had them here, they really don't. But if they had tortillas, as we would say in States, they are tortilla, right? And so we have a papaya tree. And we go to Medellin, not Medellin. There's no such thing as Medellin. Although it actually is that.
I live
It
in
is
Joy.
that. Well, no, I'm getting there. So Colombians deny this when I say it to them. Some of them agree, particularly ones that have lived in the U.S. for a while. But anyways, it's a definite J, like Papaya, Medellin. And so, of course, Illinois has 2 L's. And so this was my wife's sister. We were in Bogota, in La Calera, outside of Bogota, where she lives. It was like the first Christmas I was here, and she asked where I was from. And I was like, Chicago. And she goes, oh, Genoise. I was like, Genoise, because the J, the double L is kind of like Medellin. So she goes, Genoise. And I looked at her and I said, and I already knew this by this point, so I'd been here for 3 months. I got here at the beginning of October, and this is like Christmas time. And so I looked at her and I said, there ain't no noise in Illinois. So now whenever so now I actually say that. When they say, where are you from? I say, oh, I'm from Chicago, Illinois.
I'm going to start calling it Illinois now. I like that better.
There you go. If you pass a Colombian, they'll understand what you're saying.
I like that a lot.
All right, man. Well, Troy, I'll talk to you tomorrow. We'll probably do this tomorrow. I'm up for it if you are. Those listening, thanks again. Like, comment, subscribe. Definitely comment. We'd love to hear your takes on this, particularly you Gen X guys in our age, or you women. I mean, I don't know how much we resonate with any of it, but we didn't. Anyway, I almost got in trouble. Folks, we'll see you next time with the Gen X Transplant Brothers. Be good. man.
Bye.